One peaceful afternoon, Mr. Jim sat reading a book beside his beloved dog, Rocky, in their small home on the outskirts of town. The warm afternoon sun streamed through the window, casting a cozy light on the scene of a man and his loyal dog. Suddenly, Rocky heard an unusual sound coming from the back door. His ears perked up, his eyes sharpened, and his instincts told him that danger was near. A venomous snake suddenly slithered quickly into the house, slipping through the door straight into the kitchen, where Mr. Jim often went back and forth. Without anyone noticing, Rocky instantly sensed the lurking threat. Without hesitation, the loyal dog darted into the kitchen to confront the deadly snake. The battle between Rocky and the snake erupted right in the middle of the kitchen, with Rocky doing everything he could to stop the dangerous creature from reaching the person he loved. During the fierce struggle, Rocky accidentally knocked against a kitchen table, causing one of Mr. Jim's favorite vases to crash to the floor. The loud, piercing sound shattered the quiet space, and shards of glass flew across the room, glistening under the light like thousands of tiny crystals. Rocky didn't flinch, he remained focused on the snake, each snap and strike showing his unconditional loyalty to Mr. Jim. Hearing the loud noise, Mr. Jim hurried to the kitchen. As he entered, he was met with a chaotic scene, the fragments of his treasured vase scattered across the floor, and Rocky standing amid the mess, appearing as though he was the one who had caused the destruction. To Mr. Jim, Rocky seemed like a troublemaker, breaking something he cherished, which made him furious. In his anger, Mr. Jim didn't realize that Rocky had just saved him from great danger. All he saw was the broken vase, and he thought Rocky had been misbehaving. Unable to contain his frustration, he scolded Rocky and then locked him in his kennel as punishment. Rocky stood there, silent and sad, as if trying to tell Mr. Jim that he was completely innocent, that everything he'd done was to protect him. In his anger, Mr. Jim didn't realize that Rocky had just saved him from great danger. All he saw was the broken vase, and he thought Rocky had been misbehaving. Unable to contain his frustration, he scolded Rocky and then locked him in his kennel as punishment. Rocky stood there, silent and sad, as if trying to tell Mr. Jim that he was completely innocent, that everything he'd done was to protect him. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight filled the kitchen, Mr. Jim woke up and stepped in to clean up. His eyes still showed the fatigue from a long night, and the anger from the previous day lingered in his mind. He looked around the kitchen and began gathering up the shards from the broken vase. As he bent down to pick up the last pieces, Mr. Jim suddenly noticed something unusual on the floor. It wasn't just broken glass, but the lifeless body of a venomous snake. Mr. Jim froze. His heart turned cold as he realized the truth. Rocky had killed the snake to protect him. A wave of remorse washed over him as the image of Rocky's sad eyes while being locked away flashed through his mind. Mr. Jim understood now that Rocky hadn't caused mischief but had actually saved his life. This realization moved him deeply. Regret and gratitude filled his heart. Mr. Jim quickly rushed to the kennel where Rocky had spent the night locked in painful misunderstanding. Rocky stepped out, looking tired but with eyes still full of loyalty, showing no trace of resentment. Mr. Jim knelt down, embracing Rocky and whispering apologies, thanking him for bravely protecting him. Rocky remained silent, resting against him as if to say that everything had been forgiven long ago. From that day on, Mr. Jim never rushed to scold Rocky again. He had learned a profound lesson about Rocky's loyalty. Rocky returned to his everyday life by Mr. Jim's side, no longer worrying about misunderstandings or punishment. The two of them grew closer than ever, sharing every peaceful moment together. Every afternoon, Mr. Jim would walk with Rocky around the house, savoring the tranquility, Rocky was always there, with a loyalty that could not be shaken. Each time Mr. Jim tidied up the house, he didn't just see a clean home, he saw Rocky as a companion. Always by his side, watching over him. They were no longer just owner and pet but close friends who had overcome adversity together. To Rocky, Mr. Jim was the person he loved. The one who had given him a home and care. And to Mr. Jim, Rocky was not just a dog but a loyal friend. A brave guardian who had protected him from danger. Together, they had learned a valuable lesson about loyalty, unconditional love, and the importance of understanding each other.